It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Lindsey Wilson's head archery coach, Coach Mark Elam. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Brandon. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into coaching college archery?
It was honestly by accident. My wife and I had coached youth archery for a lot of years, and we got out of it for a while when we had some family things going on. We brought some people into our home that kind of kept us off the road. But in 2019, I guess it was, before the pandemic, the Lindsey Wilson team, which was brand new at that time, their coach left and they were getting ready to travel to some big tournaments and didn't have anybody that really understood archery to go with them. And I had a couple of kids that we brought up through the youth program that were on the Lindsey team. So I volunteered and went with them so that they would have somebody that knew what was going on, could work on equipment and so forth. And one thing led to another. And I knew that once I saw match play and how much fun the team rounds were, I knew that this was going to be the place for me to finish out my coaching career.
Of course, what was that experience like for you to be the owner of the Scholars 3D Archery?
Well, I wasn't the owner. Scholastic 3D is actually a national program that we coached in, and we got involved in it very, very early in its inception. We started out, our first year, we had 6 kids, and we actually grew that program to well over 70 at one point in time. And it was really a lot of fun. We had some great kids come through that program. That's probably where we were able to have the biggest influence on young people in archery, was in the Scholastic 3D program, because we were taking them from simply an interest in archery to being very competitive on state and national levels. And we came through that with a lot of state champions and several national champions, individually and team-wise both. So it was very rewarding, and it kind of gave me a glimpse into coaching at a higher level.
How was your experience like being the director of the National Archery Shooting Academy
Uh,
Association?
the National Archery in Schools program, I was one of the board members on the national board. And it was, of course, it's been that was a long time ago. We're talking 16, 17 years ago. But it was neat to be able to be part of the voice that guided youth archery. And at that time, the National Archery in Schools program was really about the only youth program other than 4-H that was out there. So, it's an entirely different avenue of archery than what we compete in now. It's basically an introductory program into archery for school kids. And so that was pretty rewarding to get to, introduce a lot of kids. And Rhonda, my wife, and I, we probably put 10,000 kids through the Archery in the Schools program on a local level, ones that we coached, over several years. So yeah, it was rewarding, and another thing that just kind of fueled my interest in youth archery and helping to grow these kids to be competitive nationally.
Of course, what was that experience like getting started and being an owner of a program for archery and teaching those youth athletes about archery?
Uh, about, that answer will be similar to probably the last two. Rhonda and I worked really hard. Both of us were maintaining public jobs. I was working in law enforcement. Our family owned a newspaper and screen print and print shop. So, we were extremely busy, but we always made time to work with the kids in the archery program. And again, it was just really nice to lead them on that journey, that educational journey, learn about archery and again, take them from, simply an interest into being competitive, on a major level.
What was that transition like for you from going from teaching privately archery to then becoming the head coach for Lindsey Wilson?
That transition was unreal. All of a sudden, not only did I have to coach kids and work with them individually, now I've got a coaching staff that works underneath me and all the administrative duties that go along with it. And, I guess the biggest transition was learning how to work the time management with the administrative duties and the paperwork that comes along with that. And I told my boss, the athletic director here a while back, that probably the best thing that I ever did to prepare me for this job was working in law enforcement, working for the sheriff's department, because I had to keep up the paperwork in a timely manner. So when there was an accident, I wanted to get that accident report done as soon as possible. If I arrested somebody, I wanted to get that arrest report done as soon as possible, because the longer you put that stuff off, the more it builds up and the farther behind you get. And it's really no different now. If I don't keep that paperwork and those reports up in a timely manner, then all of a sudden I'm just snowed under. So that was probably the biggest change. And then, aside from that, from a competitive standpoint, the competitive nature of collegiate archery is so much greater than, X3DA was competitive. Collegiate archery is unbelievably competitive, and we have kids that are already professional archers that are shooting collegiately now. A great percentage of these kids are sponsored by bow companies or arrow companies or release companies or optics companies or whatever. And the scores have gone absolutely through the roof. So, it was a big change. It's a positive change for me. And I've had to go through a lot of training. USA Archery, the governing body of the United States Olympics and of collegiate archery, they offer some pretty intense training that I've been through. And I think all of those things have really been a positive.
What was that experience like first coming in as that volunteer assistant and then taking over as the head coach?
when I came in that first that spring as a volunteer, I really didn't know what to expect. And honestly, even though that was only 4 years ago, the scores have just gone, they've gone crazy since then, but it was still competitive. But all of a sudden, I was there with a bunch of college age co-eds, and that brings a lot of interesting facets into it, on its own. But, the individual part of archery, what we would consider the qualifying rounds now in collegiate archery, they were basically the same as what I was used to. But then I got to experience the match play, where you get into the individual head-to-head eliminations and the team rounds and the mixed team rounds. And honestly, Brandon, I didn't know that archery could be that much fun. And when you had a group of 3 athletes shooting against another team that had 3 athletes in it, and their whole team was standing behind them, screaming and cheering. And when I came home, I said, there was more energy in those team rounds than you'll see at a Final Four national championship basketball game. And I was sold. When I saw that level of energy and excitement and fun, I was sold, and I knew this is where I needed to be.
What was that feeling like when you did get promoted to become the head coach and get to take over the program?
It was a little scary, to be honest, to realize how in depth the administrative duties were going to be. And then, at first I didn't have any assistant coaches. So, I had 41 or 42 kids on the team that, a lot of those I had to teach from the ground up because they were coming from a discipline from like the archery in the schools program to a bare bow or a recurve discipline that they've never done before. So I had to teach them. I had to maintain all of the bow work, all of the maintenance work on and repair work on that stuff. So it was a little intimidating at first, but I quickly came to realize that there's a lot of kids that come into collegiate archery that are already very experienced in working on equipment. So they were a big help. And once I kind of got my time management down and learned what the individual kids could do and their personalities, then it wasn't too bad.
Of course, on the college archery side, what are the different disciplines in college archery?
We have there's basically 8 teams within the team, because we're divided by gender, although we all compete together. We have male and female recurve, male and female bare bow, male and female pins or bow hunter, and male and female compound. So those are our 4 different disciplines divided by gender to make 8 teams within the team.
What does a typical competition match look like for Lindsey Wilson?
It kind of depends on what we're doing. Typically, we'll have a day or two of what we consider qualification rounds, where we're fixing to start 3D. So we'll use 3D for an example here. They'll shoot 40 targets and set a qualifying score. And then from those qualifying scores, the top 5 in each discipline, actually it's more than the top 5 now, the top 16 and some of them even the top 32 will compete head-to-head and head-to-head eliminations, and then wind up competing in the medal matches, gold, silver, bronze. Following that, the top 3 in each discipline, so for instance, let's say the top 3 male compound archers will shoot as a team against the top 3 male compound archers on another team. The format's basically the same. They'll take the top 16 teams or 8 teams or whatever it happens to be, and they will compete head to head all the way up through the medal matches. And then we do the mixed team matches as well, which is the top female and top male per discipline. And the format is exactly the same as the team rounds. So most of our tournaments, will have a day for 3D, it'll be a day of regional competition, which is the qualifying scores, and then a day of match play, which is your eliminations and team rounds. We get to indoor. Indoor is a little bit different. They kind of split it up there, and we don't have a standalone national tournament for indoor collegiate archery. So we actually shoot conference first, which will shoot double 600 rounds, which is 120 arrows over 2 days, and that seeds them for their match play. Outdoor target basically works the same way as 3D. We shoot 720 rounds, 72 arrows as a qualifying round, and then that seeds them for the eliminations and team match play. So that's kind of the way the matches go. Our national matches, we're usually on the road for 4 or 5 days for those.
Of course, what is that like, obviously getting to train for those indoor and outdoor matches along with the animal match?
What's the training like?
Mm-hmm.
For the 3D, obviously that's all outdoors. So, we'll start our practice August the 16th. And I don't know if you've ever been in Kentucky in the middle of August, but it's extremely hot and extremely humid. And we practice in the afternoons from 3 to 5. So we're out there in the heat of the day. But we'll go through for 2 hours, and they'll rotate through a course that the coaching staff sets. And we'll do that. We actually have a month from the time that we start practice until our first tournament, and then another 2 weeks before the national tournament. So the time frame on 3D is really short. So we have to really cram a lot in there in a hurry. Indoor goes basically from the middle of October till the end of February, 1st of March. So that's a much, much longer season. So we kind of spread that out. We still practice every day, but not every athlete practices every day. Outdoor target, we go back to the same schedule as we have in 3D. We practice in the afternoons. And again, in Kentucky, that practice schedule is dependent a little bit on weather. 1st of March, we could have snow, we could have ice, we could have 80 degrees, we could have 40-mile-an-hour winds. So our practice is, a little fluid for outdoor target, but, we typically practice a minimum of 4 days a week. And then they have a workout schedule where they go to the gym. And then in the wintertime, we do a mental management program as well in the classroom to address, because archery, once you understand the form and execution techniques, archery is about 90+% right between your ears. It's a mental game then. So we do a lot of work there. So practice is, it's time consuming to, but it's fun. The kids have a good time. We work hard, but we have a good time. And I want them to have, when they finish at Lindsey Wilson, when they walk across that stage and get their degree, which by the way is the best part of being a collegiate coach, is watching them after their 4 years walk across that stage and shake President Lucky's hand and get their degree. That's the best part of it. But watching them grow and succeed, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
As a head coach, how do you keep the momentum of your athletes when doing long 4-day competitions?
Well, we promote a true family atmosphere here, and that's really, really important to me. It's as much as I want to win a national title, from keeping that family dynamic is the most important thing to me. And when we can keep that family dynamic, they push each other. A lot of times at night, they basically have all night access to the range down here, to the indoor range. And they'll come in at night and the kids will come in, the athletes will come in and they will do competitions on their own. And then I try to come up with some form of reward or award for them, whether it be a ball cap or a gift certificate to Dairy Queen, whatever it happens to be. So they push each other a lot. I push them a lot, but they push each other a lot, but they love each other. And, I think that dynamic really keeps that momentum going forward.
Who are some of the different teams that you will compete against in competitions?
Well, there are over 90 collegiate archery programs now, split between varsity programs like we are and club programs. So, we compete against obviously all of those that go to the national tournaments, on the regional and conference. We compete against the other Kentucky schools, U Pike, Midway, Union, University of the Cumberlands, Kentucky Christian University up in Akron. But then when we get to the national tournaments, then we're bringing in, your Texas A&Ms and your Michigan States and University of California, Irvine. I think UCLA has a program now. Montevallo down in Alabama, Mississippi State. There's a lot of competition now.
What is that like, obviously getting to compete against some of your teams like in your conference, like U Pikeville, Midway, and Lindsey and stuff, versus going to national competitions and see teams like Texas A&M and UCLA?
There's a lot of rivalries within conference. But in conference play, these kids all know each other. Most of them competed together or were even on the same team growing up. So, it's very common now that we have shooters on Lindsey Wilson, U Pike, University of the Cumberlands, Union, that all were on the same team in high school, that are a part of the same program in high school. So those friendships are still there. So, they're highly competitive on the field, but after the competition is over, then you'll see those kids, they're off to themselves and they're visiting with each other and, maintaining those friendships and those relationships that they fostered years ago. However, when we go to the national tournaments, as compared to the conference tournaments where we really compete against each other in conference, when we get to the national tournaments, if we're in, let's say, a team match against UC Irvine, we'll just pull a team out of the air, then you're going to see those Kentucky kids standing behind the Kentucky kids from other teams. So, the Lindsey Wilson kids may be standing behind the University of the Cumberlands kids and cheering them on, or vice versa. And it's a really neat dynamic to see. It's a dynamic that you don't really see in any other sport.
Of course, what is that like, obviously, going against some of those teams like Texas A&M and UCLA that in other sports at Lindsay, you might not get to compete against those big name teams?
It's we have some of the best shooters in the nation on this team. So, it's really not a big deal. We don't get intimidated by them at all. So, I think the first year that I was here, there was probably a little intimidation factor, especially against Texas A&M because they had such a successful program over the years. But once these athletes began to see that, they could do anything that Texas A&M could do and consistently were, beating them on the field of play, then it wasn't a big deal at all anymore.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for the archery program at Lindsey Wilson?
Sure. Again, we've really worked hard to keep a family dynamic. So we do a lot of activities, like we'll have a cookout before we travel. We'll bring the whole team in and we'll do a cookout. We'll set out the cornhole boards and water pong and some of those different kind of things. And, try to keep that family dynamic, that family relationship atmosphere going. But the kids are going to start coming back in here on August the 12th. Physicals are August the 16th, but in between their arrival and our physicals, we've got the pool reserved for a couple hours up at our wellness center, and they're going to set the volleyball nets for us. So we're going to bring the team in and we're going to play team volleyball in the pool. Things like that, just bonding type events to try to keep that family dynamic going. So, if I had to describe the culture of Lindsey Wilson Archery, it's all about family.
Of course, what have been some of your biggest accomplishments as the head coach for Lindsey Wilson's archery?
Seeing those kids walk across the stage and get their diploma, that to me is the biggest accomplishment of anything. And, as coaches, we have to guide them a lot of times through the academic part of things to get to that point. Time management is a huge thing that we have to work with them on, because if you take an incoming freshman, they're away from home for the very first time. They're responsible for their own meals. They have to get to class on time. They have to do their homework. They have to be at practice because practice is mandatory. That's not a voluntary thing. And, so we try to foster and lead them in learning how to manage their time. We had a young lady that I guess about 3 years ago started a Google spreadsheet with all of her class assignments on it, and she would color code everything, had every class time, every assignment that was due, when every test was held, and she shared that with all of the other athletes that wanted it to help with their time management. So, things like that are just huge to me. And then we've had some professional archers come on and do virtual presentations in our mental management class. Paige Pierce, Aaron McGlattery. We did a presentation with Brady Ellison, who is the #1 recurve archer in the world right now. Of course, Paige is the #1 female in compound archery right now. So, all of those are, I would consider accomplishments, but, competitively, we've remained in the top 3 in the nation. And that to me is huge. We just got word last week that there's a magazine called College Magazine that went through and rated the 10 top archery colleges in the United States. And we were ranked #2 in the United States in that article. And that was huge to me because it shows that we're going in the right direction and trying to teach these kids the things that are going to help make them be successful adults.
Of course, as a coach, what is that like, having those professional athletes in archery like Paige come and do a mentor program for your kids and show them that they can one day become professional archers?
I think it really solidifies to those kids that they can do anything they want to if they'll put in the effort. It was really funny when Paige did her virtual presentation with us, and that was 2 years ago now, I guess. I didn't tell the kids who was going to be talking to them that evening in their mental management class. And of course, we had a big screen, and I was streaming from the computer to the big screen. And when I hit play or receive or whatever the Zoom thing was, and Paige popped up there on the big screen, every one of them's chin hit the floor. You know, they're, holy crap, this is Paige Pierce. And it was amazing to see the back and forth communication between Paige and these collegiate athletes, and the things that she told them about managing anxiety was just incredible. And it was really neat. The next tournament, that was through indoor season. The next tournament we were at, I could see those kids on the line going through the steps that Paige had talked to them about to deal with anxiety. And that was really cool. And they really enjoy that. You know, it's a struggle to work with a professional athlete schedule to get those things done. But, you know, we do our mental management class at 6 o'clock in the evening in the winter, so it's already dark. And I think it's a little easier for them to make time to do things then. But, you know, athletes like Paige and Aaron, I'm hoping to get Charlie Rogers this fall, who used to be a baseball pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. You know, he's a professional archer now. But, you know, they seem to really enjoy sharing their knowledge with these younger athletes. And it's just incredible to watch that.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective archers that are looking to go into college archery?
There's a lot of different ways, Brandon, that works. There's a lot of them that reach out to me through email or a phone call that I may not be familiar with. You know, for instance, I had an email this week from a kid out in Colorado that I don't know personally. I knew him by reputation. And then he and I will communicate and open a dialogue and talk about things. A lot of it is just like 2 weeks ago, we were in Des Moines, Iowa at JOAD Nationals recruiting up there. And, you know, obviously I don't talk to the kids while they're in the middle of competition. You know, that's distracting to them. But when they're finished, you know, we'll talk about, you know, what they want to do, what they hope to do. And we'll talk about their academic goals. We'll talk about their athletic goals. We'll talk about their personal goals. And try to work all of that together, and see, you know, one of the things that we really look for is somebody that's going to fit with our team dynamic. You know, it's very important to us. And not everybody out there is going to enjoy the family atmosphere that we try to foster. And that's fine, because there'll be a program out there somewhere, if they want to continue to shoot in college, that, you know, will fit their personality. But, you know, we look at the talent, we look at their goals, we look obviously at their grades, because, you know, if they don't keep their grades up in college, you're not going to be able to compete. But we work through that, and then typically they'll do a campus visit, and they'll set up through the admissions office, and they'll meet with the admissions counselor, they'll do a campus tour, and then they come down here to our facility, to our archery range in my office, and we sit down in here and talk. And typically, when we have a recruit coming through or a student athlete coming through while school's in session, most of the team, if they're not in class, almost all of the team will come down here to meet them. And then, you know, they get to talk and visit with each other. And I really encourage the recruits to away from me and away from their parents with the athletes that are already on the team, so that they can ask them the questions that they don't want to ask me or that they don't want to ask the parents. You know, if they want to say, is coach a butthead, then they can ask the other student athletes that, and they're going to tell them the truth. If they think I'm a butthead, they're going to tell them I'm a butthead. So, you know, the recruitment process it's time consuming, but it's rewarding as well. And we have a really, really strong group of freshman athletes coming in this fall. So I'm really excited to see where our previous recruiting takes us this season.
Of course, what does that official visit look like when showing them around the archery facility?
They will sit down with an admissions counselor, and the admissions counselors here at Lindsey Wilson College are divided by geographical area. You know, you have an out-of-state counselor, then you have different counselors that have different areas of Kentucky. So they will sit down with their admissions counselor and they will talk about some of their goals and their plans. They'll fill out an application, you know, which that's a no strings attached kind of deal, but it kind of gets the process started. And then they'll take a campus tour and they'll have a tour guide that takes them all around campus and shows them the different buildings. Typically we'll show them the cafeteria, the wellness center, which we have a state-of-the-art wellness center facility here that's just unbelievable. So they'll show them all of those things. After the tour is complete, they go back in with the admissions counselor for any final questions and then come down here to our facility and spend as much time as they need to or want to with myself, my other coaches, and the team. And, you know, we'll answer any questions they have about archery and the archery program here. The number one question we get asked is, you know, what does your practice schedule look like? More than anything else, that's question number one. Question number two is, what's your travel schedule look like? Question number three is, you know, how do the professors work with you when you're traveling? You know, so we go through those sorts of things. And of course, you know, when we travel, it's a collegiate sanctioned event. So those are excused classes. They still have to keep their homework up while they're on the road. And some of them even have to take, you know, lockdown browser tests while we're on the road. But, you know, they are excused absences. And so that's kind of the way our recruiting process works.
Of course, what is that like as a head coach, seeing them fall in love with your archery facility when seeing it on the visit?
It's rewarding. And I know I keep using that term, but, you know, most of this job is rewarding. But to see them come in, typically they're pretty unsure of what's going to happen and a little timid. And most of the time when they leave here, they're all smiles. They're very comfortable. They're comfortable with myself and my staff. They're comfortable with the team that's already here. So you know, that's a pretty cool process as well.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like seeing your freshmen put on that archery uniform for the first time versus your seniors putting it on for the last time?
The first time, you know, they're all excited. You know, this is my first collegiate event. You know, I want to go out here and do my very best, and so that's pretty neat. The last time is entirely different. It's not putting it on the last time as much as it is the conclusion of the last tournament. And that's when they, you know, every time we'll get on the bus after that last tournament, and there'll be 2 or 3 seniors that'll walk up to the front of the bus to my seat and say, Coach, we have 5 years of eligibility, right? Yes, so that's right. I'd like to talk to you about coming back. There's always a lot of tears that last time, not just by the kids, by the coaching staff as well, because we all get really close. We get really tight and really invested in what they've done, you know, academically, athletically, personally, and they stay family. You know, once they leave here, they're still family. So that last time's tough.
Of course, as a head coach, what is that like seeing those seniors go on and go into professional archery, whether it's representing the U.S. or just on the pro circuit?
Again, it's very rewarding. One of the goals that I set for myself is to have a certain percentage of these kids go on and shoot professionally. And my goal right now, excuse me, is to have 5% of the kids that come through this program go on and shoot professionally. And it's rewarding as all get out, you know, to see that happen. The sad part about it is that we kind of lose touch when that happens. Of course, I continue to follow them, you know, through their career. And we still talk and we're still friendly, but, you know, we're not in each other's lives every day. But it's very rewarding to see that happen.
Of course, what are some of your future plans for the archery program moving forward?
To win a national title, number one. You know, there's a lot of things. That's kind of a loaded question, to be honest with you. You know, the number one thing is to see every one of these kids walk across the stage and get their diploma. You know, that's the most important part of being here. But you know, we want to see more kids in the individual elimination matches. We want to see more kids in the top 8. We definitely want to see more kids in the top 3. We want that national title. We've been so very close to it, more than once, and just missed it by a little bit. So, we want to see our talent level increase. We want to see our retention increase, but we want that national W.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of collegiate archery?
Focus on time management, number one. That, to me, like I told you a minute ago, we start competing really, really soon after we get here. A month after they come on campus, we're in a tournament setting. I don't expect a whole lot out of them the first year because they're undergoing so many changes in their personal lives. So, time management, learn how to manage your time is paramount. And then just work hard on your academics, work hard on your practice schedule, on your archery, and begin to foster that family dynamic with your teammates.
What advice would you give those seniors that are looking to compete on the professional circuit, whether it's US or just a club level of archery professionally?
If you want to compete in the Olympics or on the U.S. archery team or compete professionally, then you're going to have to work harder than anybody else out there. So time management, again, becomes very important because you still have the academic side of things to take care of, but, you're going to need to put a ton more time into practice. And as a coach, not everybody is going to relate to me personally all the time with that my coaching style or my personality or whatever it happens to be. So, find somebody that you can trust and that is knowledgeable that can help you with the things that you need help with. Don't have an ego, be able to say, I don't know what to do here and I need help. And if you'll have that attitude and go forward and work hard, then you can make it.
What advice would you give those collegiate archers looking to get into college coaching after their collegiate archery career?
To get into college archery, don't have an ego. Like I said just a minute ago, from the athlete's viewpoint, don't have an ego because, again, you're going to have kids that don't relate to you that well. So, whether they relate to one of my graduate assistants or one of the other advanced athletes, be willing to allow them that freedom to go forward and work with whoever is going to be able to help them the most. Learn, be willing as a prospective coach to say, I don't know everything and there are things that I need to learn. Myself, for instance, I come from a compound archery background. Well, compound archery is half of what we do. Bare bow and recurve archery is the other half. And I had to learn those things. And the trainings that we went through with USA Archery were, really, really helpful in teaching those things. The Olympic archery coach, Kisik Lee, he taught my level 4 class, and he's a recurve coach and very, very good. Obviously, he's our U.S. Olympic coach. So exposing yourself to people that know more than you do is very important.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own archery program for their college/university?
It's going to be really close to what we just talked about there. Again, don't have an ego, be willing to learn, work on your time management skills, because, again, the administrative portion of it takes up more time than most people realize. So, learn, work on your time management, and again, don't have an ego that gets in the way of teaching these kids. But I guess the biggest thing above all else when it comes to coaching, whether it be youth archery, collegiate archery, is put the kids first. Put their needs first above anything else. And if you do that, everything else is going to work out.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find the program at on social media?
Blue Raider Archery is our Facebook page. We also have an Instagram page, and I think it's under the same thing. Then obviously there's a Lindsey Wilson College website that has our roster and schedules and those types of things on it. Those aren't updated yet because the new athletes haven't come in yet this fall. But we don't keep a huge presence on social media just simply because it takes a lot of time that we don't have, but we try to keep some presence on there. There's a lot of pictures on there that they can go on and see, maybe those pictures will represent how much fun collegiate archery can be.
Thank you again, Coach Mark Elam, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Lindsey Wilsons as the head archery coach.
Thank you so much, Brandon. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Mark Elam, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.